Hi everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. I have about maybe like 400 videos or something on my channel, which is a crazy amount and a little daunting sometimes, and people ask me where they ought to start. And it depends on what their end goal is, but usually if they want to play jazz piano, I'll tell them to start with my video called Jazz Piano, Where to Start. But lately, I've been to some clinics at colleges and some jazz camps, and I've come to some realizations that I need to make you aware of that I think will help. Even if you've never watched my channel before, I think that this is a good place to start, and I'm going to make a little series that will give you some more clear-cut direction about what if you want to start playing piano by ear? What if you don't know how to figure out the chords that you hear on the radio by ear and then play them yourself in your own way? How are you going to do that? Even what if you want to be a jazz piano player and play all these hip voicings? How are you going to do that? So what I've realized is when I ask people to start with the Jazz Piano Where to Start video, that kind of takes apart chords in the way that we normally think about them, which is like 1, 3, 5, like C, E, G, and it tells you that you should play the thirds and sevens of all of the chords, because when we're playing jazz rootless voicings, those are the most important notes in the chord. But I'll find that I ask people to start figuring out the thirds and sevens of chords, and they're very slow at it. Like maybe if I ask them to come up with the third and seven of a C7 chord, maybe they're coming up with the E and the B instead of the E and the B flat. And if that happens, I have to say to them, all right, we've got to back up. There are some things apparently that you haven't learned yet, and we've got to make sure you know them before we progress on this jazz path. In this video today, I'm going to refer to several of my other videos. I've already referred to one of them. But another one that I need to refer to is how to practice major scales. Because the reason that people can't find the third and seven of chords is because they don't know their major scales. Major scales are kind of just the baseline fundamental of everything that you'll need to know as you progress. Go slowly, maybe 1 scale a week, maybe 2 scales a week, but you need to internalize. An A major scale has 3 sharps. An E flat major scale has 3 flats. Things like that you need to just be able to know off the top of your head. I used to think that if I ever taught lessons, I would just do this kind of thing and not even bother with the beginnings of chords like C, E, and G, the 1, 3, and 5, because I thought that maybe it messed me up. When I got to college and I learned that to play major chords for jazz, I wasn't even gonna play the 1 or the 5. I was gonna play the 3 and the 7 and the 9 and the 13 and the sharp 11, and I thought, my gosh, why did I ever learn chords like 1, 3, 5? This has just messed me up forever. But in living a little bit longer, I've found out that it did not mess me up at all, and what it did was give me a leg up on a lot of people who didn't have a basic understanding of chords and how they function. So what I did when I was a kid is what I know worked for me. And if you wonder if you're ever going to be able to listen to a song and say, what's this key that this song is in, or what key does it go to on the bridge, or what does it sound like if there's a 2-5-1, if these are things that you wonder if you'll ever be able to hear with your ears, you need to back up to this spot that I'm going to take you right now. This spot is what I did when I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, I had this music teacher who would play any song that he taught us, all the little kid songs, Wheels on the Bus or Jingle Bells, whatever we were singing. He just played them in the key of C, and he used 3 chords, and it was C and F and G. That's all I knew. And I knew that he was just playing those 3 chords because I asked him. He said, well, you can play a lot of songs with just C and F and G. So every song I wanted to play, I tried to play with C and F and G. And it turned out I could play a whole lot of songs. And my parents started to say, you're playing by ear. I think she's playing by ear. And I was. So we would try Jingle Bells, and I would just go, I did this kind of thing. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a 1-horse open sleigh. And I just chose from those 3 chords, C and F and G. And so much of the time it was working. And my grandpa, I have a video where I talk about my grandma and grandpa, but my grandfather would have me sit down with him and we would play chords together to play all the old cowboy songs that he knows. I do have a video called Country Songs, 20 country songs with 3 chords. This is the kind of thing that you need to do. You need to find songs that you like. If they're country songs, if they're rock or pop or bluegrass or R&B, there's a lot of songs that just have these 3 chords. And if you can choose one and start to play it, you're on the right track. I wouldn't say to just play it in the key of C, but after you get it in the key of C, I would challenge you to start playing it in a different key. Maybe try the key of G because it just has 1 sharp, or maybe try the key of F because it just has 1 flat. In any of these keys that we're talking about, you just need 3 chords to play these simple songs. Right? Happy Birthday is one of them. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Aimee. Happy birthday to you. Just 3 chords. It takes you through the whole song. And then you can move it, like I said. So if you move this song to the key of G, everything changes. You have to start the melody on a new note. It's a D. Happy birthday to, and then your next chord is actually going to be the 5 of G, which is D. To you, happy birthday to you, and you come back. This is what I did as a kid. Every song that I could, sometimes I would try to play for my dad to sing a song, and he would say, I can't sing this song. And so I thought, oh, it must be too high. Let's try a different key. And I would try one of these other keys, and then that would work for my dad. So I saw that. But then I paid more attention to my music teacher's hands, and I realized that when he switched from C to F, he wasn't doing a great big jump. What he was doing was taking the notes from C, C, E, G, and noticing if there were any in common between the chord C and the chord F, or C major and F major. And there is. The C note is the same. So when you can, and I have a video about this too, it's in my rock piano series, how to play rock piano. You move the chord as closely as you can to the chord that came before it. So instead of doing a jump, you take the F and the A note of that second chord and you just move your fingers to it so that you have a very nice, we call it voice leading, between C and F. And then you can do the same thing for G. You can move from F to G just by raising everything a little bit. So when we play this inversion of G, we call it the second inversion. And it's because in a regular G chord, we've got G, B, D. But now what we've done is inverted it twice. First, we put the G on the top. Second, we put the G. Next, we put the B on the top, which is what we have when we move from this C in root position to the closest G chord. We've got a G in second inversion. If you don't understand your inversions, that's super important because we don't want your hand jumping like this. It just doesn't sound as smooth to go happy birthday to you as it does to go happy birthday to you. That's a little smoother. There's another choice too. You can go happy birthday to you and move it down to first inversion. These are things that need to come naturally to you as you try to play songs with 3 chords. So all the songs that you can think of, whether they tend to be just easy songs. But I mean, songs like Hey Jude will work though. And in my rock piano series, I also tell you how to take these chords and break them up to play arpeggios and little patterns that will make you start to sound, less like my teacher when I was in the 2nd grade and more like somebody who plays piano for a rock band. So instead of going, hey Jude, don't let me down, you can start to break up these notes into patterns and make it sound more fluid and beautiful. Hey Jude, don't let me down. Again, it's in the rock piano series. There are all kinds of ways to break up notes in chords to make them sound more interesting. All kinds of ways. Sky's the limit. I remember somebody asked me if I could play I've Been Working on the Railroad when I was a kid. And I said, sure. I'm sure I've got this. And then we started trying. I've been working on the railroad all the livelong day. C to F. I've been working on the railroad just to... And then I tried... pass, that doesn't sound quite right, just to pass the time. And I knew that there was another chord that would sound better than that G chord. Like the G chord could pass, but my ears were starting to develop and I realized that there was some other chord that would sound better. So I remember asking my music teacher, is there another chord right here? And it turns out he did know more than 3 chords. He said, yeah, it's called D7. So he taught me D7. Oh my gosh. D and F sharp and A and C. All right, let me try, I've been working on the railroad just to, you sure it's got a black note? That seems nuts to me. Try it. Just to pass the time away. Oh my gosh, it works. So I've learned another chord at this point. D7. We call it, the dominant 2, or you can call it the 5 of 5. It's got a function. And I didn't even know what it was called other than D7, and I didn't know its function other than that it was the missing chord I needed to make that song sound right. Now, my mom taught me another chord because when I was maybe just 5 or 6 years old, I already knew this chord, A minor, from Heart and Soul, right? Da-da-da, the melody just happens, and for the whole song, the chords never change, and it just always goes with the melody, and the chords are always this, right? It just was the C and the A minor and the F and the G over and over and over again. But I did know A minor. Didn't know what it was called, but I knew A minor. And I remember my mom telling me something really cool one day. She said, now that you've got these chords, Aim, you can change one of them if you want to have a different sound. And she didn't know what it was called. She didn't know why it worked. Somebody had taught her at some point that if she wanted to, she could substitute out the F chord for a D minor chord. So instead of having this one, she would have this. My mom didn't even know it, but she taught me my first 2-5-1. That D minor chord in the key of C is the minor 2. And you can substitute it for F sometimes, and it sounds really nice. So when I figured out that F wasn't the be-all, end-all 4 chord, I did start subbing out sometimes for D minor, and that was huge for me to realize. So that da-da-da, if I wanted, da-da-da, D minor, da-da-da-da-da-da, maybe F this time, ba-da-da-da-da-da. It's a different sound, right? Da-da, here it comes again. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. That was so big for me to realize that there were just more chords. And so what I started to do was to try to play all the songs that I heard on the radio. And in the late 80s, it was probably a lot of Whitney Houston or Cyndi Lauper or I don't know, whoever was on the radio. So I would try to play all of the songs that I could play and to see if my 3 or 4 or 5 chords that I knew would work. But sometimes they didn't work. So what I did was I asked my mom to take me to the library, and I got some easy piano books that had chords in them. So I could see that if I was going to play Whitney Houston, I believe the children are... I would have just probably tried to stay on G, but I read a C augmented chord. I believe the children are the future. And then an A minor chord, but with a C on the bottom. Teach them well. Those things came as epiphanies to me when I read them in, the little piano, like pop of the 80s book or whatever I was reading. When I couldn't figure out the chords, I looked for them, and then I tried to understand them. And then I played them as much as I could, and I tried to memorize them. And as I did this, I tell you what, things sunk in. And now when I hear a song that starts on a 1 chord but needs to go to the augmented 1 chord, I know it because I learned it, from Whitney Houston when I was 11 or something. And just a little bit at a time, taking the songs that I knew and loved and wished I could play, that's how I learned to play by ear. People ask me, how can you just play the songs that get requested? And it's just from practice. And it started out with Jingle Bells. And then it went to I've Been Working on the Railroad. And then it went to The Greatest Love of All. And then, it went to whatever song I was excited about next. I remember being excited about the song Dust in the Wind by Kansas. And I remember getting the book from the library. I found the sheet music to Dust in the Wind. But I didn't really care about reading it like it was written, with all the notes. I cared about those chords because I knew that I could make those chords into whatever I wanted. And at the beginning, I'm sure it didn't sound great, I close my eyes. I'm not sure what I did, but as I listened to the song and heard the guitar picking, I figured out how to break up those chords to sound like guitar. I close my eyes. And the more I messed around, the more I started to be able to sound like the recording. That was big to me. I have another video that's kind of like this when I made the realization that people were trying to take jazz solos and be good at soloing in the jazz idiom, but they couldn't pick out the melody to simple songs, maybe like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They couldn't just go and just pick it out. They would stumble, just stumble on it. And that's no fault of their own because nobody teaches you to do this. This is the crazy thing. Nobody teaches this. You learn how to play, You learn how to play all the beautiful classical piano and, whatever your simplified version of Ode to Joy and everything. But nobody ever says, this is the 1 chord. Check it out right here. This is a 5/7 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Now we're going to go to the 4 chord. Now the 5. Right? Like nobody ever tells you that. And they never say this is called a C chord. This is called a G7 chord. And if they do, they give it to you in a stinking workbook and they expect you to just fill it out. And that's your homework for the week. They don't ever talk about why it sounds good. Why. They never talk about why. They only talk about what. And that's if you were lucky enough to have a teacher that even addressed music theory at all. But nobody teaches you to figure out melodies and nobody teaches you to figure out chords. And I just think it's wrong and backwards. So if you are finding that you've got trouble with these things or that you can't do them, you got to beep, beep. You just got to back up and you've got to learn how to do this. So key of C, 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord. I'm not going to make you any kind of worksheet about this. I do, I make the bulk of my money from YouTube off of selling worksheets to some of my videos. But dude, there's not a worksheet for this. This is your ears. And, I'll give it to you. Maybe I have a little leg up on you because these babies are kind of ginormous, but it doesn't make a difference. What made the difference was when I was in the 2nd grade asking my music teacher, to help me learn the chords to whatever silly song we were learning that week. And I was just fortunate enough that I had an inquisitive mind and I wanted to be able to do those things. And so I asked those questions. I don't know why it's that way, but I'm so glad that it is. And I don't want you to miss that step. I'll make more videos like this and I'll take you through what I think the next steps are. But for today, you learn your major scales, all right? Just one at a time. If you don't know how to play a C major scale, learn how to play it. Then I'd like you to play some inversions. So I'd like you to take the C major chord and invert it all the way up and down the piano. Like that. For your first week, the only inversions I need you to do are for C and F and G. So you get those C inversions going on, you get those F inversions going on, you get the G inversions going on. And pretty soon you recognize those shapes of those inversions, and when it's time to change chords, you can do it in a way that is beautiful with nice voice leading instead of having your hand jump all around the piano. So we've got major scales, we've got inversions, and then I just want you to think of all the easy songs that you can and try to play 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord with those songs. As many as you can. Try to do like 5 easy songs, whatever they are. If you don't know which songs to try, you can go to my video about 20 country songs with 3 chords, and that'll give you 20 of them, even though they're country, and some of you might not like that. There's a bunch of them. Go to early rock and roll. There are so many, Good golly, Miss Molly, right? All these Little Richard songs, and those are usually just 3 chords. Find songs that you're excited about, that you want to play, and just start trying them. and change chords when you feel like it's time to change chords. And if it doesn't sound right to go to the F chord, do it again and try the G chord. Trial and error are going to train your ears. And then you'll be able to listen to, whatever song you hear on the radio, Usher or Adele or whoever, and you'll start to say, oh, they went to the 4 chord right there. Oh, this feels like a 5 chord. And this is how you'll know. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music. Don't forget to pick up my new album. And my gosh, if you want a Keep Calm and Freaking Swing t-shirt, they're on my website.